Make sure that you're copying every little detail. That includes the titles, that includes all the drawings, and that includes all the numbers. To be able to understand the angles in triangles, first we're going to go over the different type of triangles. The first one is going to be an equilateral triangle. That means that every single side and every single angle are all going to be equal. They have exactly the same measurement. The next one, it's a right triangle, and that's going to be a triangle that has a 90-degree angle right here, and the hypotenuse is going to be the longest side that is opposite to the 90-degree angle. The next one that we have is an isosceles. An isosceles triangle has two sides that are exactly the same and a third one that is going to be different. That means that two of the angles are going to be exactly the same, but one of them is going to be different. And then the last one is going to be a scalene triangle. That means that every single one is going to be a different one, and one of the angles is going to be obtuse. Sometimes you may get an scalene where it has an angle that is less than 90 degrees and the other two. That's totally fine. Now we're going to denotate measurements. So to denotate measurements, what we're going to do is we're going to put lines or little arcs to help you know which angles are the same. So for example, in the first one that we mentioned, this is equilateral. Since every side is the same, they're usually going to have a little line that tells you they're exactly the same measurement. So if they have a line like this, that means that the three of them are going to be congruent. Now, we also said that the angles are going to be congruent, so that means that they're all going to have the same measurement, and actually they're all 60 degrees. The next one is going to be a triangle, but in this one, they actually don't have the same sides, so we're actually going to put one, and then we're going to put another one right here, and then we're going to put another one right here. So as you can see, this one has one, this one has two, this one has three. So then that means that none of the three sides have the same measurement. Now when we're talking about the angles, we know that this is going to be a right angle, so this is going to be a little square. This is going to be one angle, and since this one is different, we're going to put two lines because they are different. So if you just look at this angle and this angle, because they don't have the same number of lines, you know that they're different sizes. Now when we're looking at isosceles triangles, you know that this side and this side are going to be exactly the same. They have the same measurement, and then the last one is going to be different, and this is going to be actually smaller. Sometimes it's going to be bigger. Now the thing with isosceles triangles is that two angles are also going to be the same, but a third one is going to be different. And with an scalene, similar to a right triangle, they're going to have different measurements, and they're going to have different angles. Now let's go over the angles in a triangle. So the most important part is the sum of the interior angles in a triangle add up to 180. So you have three angles in each triangle, and when you add them all up, they always need to give you 180 degrees. So let's prove that. So when we're looking at the first one, we have 60 degrees plus 60 degrees plus 60 degrees, and that's going to give you 60 plus 60 gives you 120, plus 60 gives you 180 degrees. When you look at the next one, you have 90 degrees plus 30 degrees plus 60 degrees, and that's going to give you 180. The next one, you have 80 degrees plus 80 degrees, that's going to be 160 plus 20, and that's going to give you 180. And lastly, you're going to have 110 degrees plus 50 degrees, that's going to be 160 plus 20 degrees, that's going to give you 180 degrees. So again, when you add all of them, you should always be getting 100 degrees. Make sure that you have all the work and also you have all the drawings. Now we're going to be looking at exterior angles. So the exterior angle is equal to the sum of the opposite interior angles. So for example, right here, this angle is going to be equal to the opposite. This is going to be what we call the adjacent angle that is right next to it. So this angle is going to be equal to the sum of these two. That means that that's going to be 60 plus 60. So that angle needs to be 120. Keep in mind that we can actually say that these two angles are supplementary. So you know that 120 and 60 gives you 180. Now for the next triangle, and this one is going to be a right triangle. So this is 90 degrees. So this angle right here is going to be the opposite of 60. So it's going to be 90 and 30. All right. So when you add 90 and 30, you're going to get 120. So similar to the other one. Now, as you can see, the line is also going to be a little bit different. So for the next one, you have 80 degrees is the adjacent, the angle that is right next to it. So we're looking for the other one. So using the supplementary line, you can say that this is going to be 100 degrees just because we know that they're going to be supplementary. But even though they're supplementary, the rule is they're going to be the sum of the opposite. So that's going to be 20 plus 80. So that's going to be our proof. It's going to be 80 degrees plus 20 degrees. It's going to be equal to 100 degrees. Even though that this follows the rule of supplementary angles, you need to make sure that you understand this part. And lastly, you're going to have 110, 50, and 20. So the opposite of these two is going to be 110 and 50. So when you add those two up, you're going to get 160 degrees. So 110 plus 50 gives me 160. And that's going to be our proof. And then we're going to do 90 plus 30 is going to be equal to 120 degrees. Now, using the information that we have covered, you're going to find the missing angle. So, by definition, you were told that the sum of all the interior angles is going to be 180. So that means that if I go to the first triangle, I'm going to put 50 degrees plus 50 degrees plus x is going to give me 180 degrees. So now you need to solve for your variable here, x. So to do that, I'm going to add the first part. I'm going to add 100 degrees plus x equals 180 degrees. Now, since you're trying to leave the x by itself, you're going to do inverse operation. So you're going to get rid of that 100. So I'm going to subtract both sides by 100 degrees. And that's going to give you x is equal to 80 degrees. And that is your answer to finding x. Now let's look at another problem. In this case, we're going to be finding y. So you're going to follow exactly the same process. So I'm going to add 25 plus 105 plus y, and that's going to give me 180 degrees. When I combine like terms, so the ones are next to each other in the same side of the equal sign, I'm going to get 130 degrees plus y is going to equal to 180 degrees. So now I'm going to subtract 130 from both sides, and now you have y is equal to 50 degrees. Now, instead of finding one angle from a triangle, we're actually going to be finding two different angles from a triangle, and we need to know the properties of external angles. So you know by definition that the exterior angle, so 80, is going to be equal to the sum of these two, so x and 20. So we're going to solve this one way. The first part is using the exterior angle property. So if we know that we have x plus 20 is equal to 80 degrees, that means that you're going to subtract 20 from both sides, and then now you have x is equal to 60 degrees. Now, using that information, you know that when you add all the interior angles, that's going to give you 180. So we're going to do x plus y plus 20 degrees is going to give me 180. We already know that x is equal to 60 degrees, so I'm going to put 60 degrees instead. And just keep everything else the same. Now I'm going to combine like terms. So that's going to be 80 degrees plus y is going to be equal to 180. I want to subtract 80 from both sides. So that's going to be y is equal to 100 degrees. So that's one way of solving this problem. The other way to solving this problem is knowing that these two are going to be angles on a line. So that means that they're going to be supplementary. So you know that 80 plus y is going to be equal to 180 by definition of supplementary angles. If you need a review on this, watch the other video about angles. So I'm going to subtract 80 from both sides. And now you have y is equal to 100 degrees. So if we already know that y is equal to 100 degrees, again, we can put it right here. That's going to be 100 degrees. So what we can do is rewrite this as x plus y plus 20 is going to be equal to 180 degrees. You know the value of y, it's 100. So that's going to be 100 degrees plus 20 degrees is going to be equal to 180 degrees. Combine like terms, you have x plus 120 degrees is going to be equal to 180 degrees. Subtract 120 from both sides. And that's going to be x is equal to 60 degrees. As you can see, you get the same answers, doesn't matter however you solve the problem, but I wanted to give you two different ways to approach a problem to help you out. You choose whatever is easier, and this proves that every single property that we have discussed in the video holds true.